The Entered Apprentice of the Temple of Solomon. So this drawing represents the Entered Apprentice degree in Freemasonry. This is about raising consciousness and true wisdom of self. The original artwork was by Josiah Boring. Immediately you can see that this is a map, and you see this east and west and north and south. And a Masonic lodge is always situated due east and west. So this is a glyph about raising consciousness and true wisdom of self. And this drawing here corresponds to the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. So we talk about Solomon's temple, and we break down the word Solomon. You can break it down to Sol and Mon. Sol as in sun or solar, and Mon as in moon or lunar. And this is just one of many interpretations of this first Masonic board. And this interpretation is called the Entered Apprentice of the Temple of Solomon. And this teaching is given to the initiate at the beginning of their journey. Solomon's temple, we talk about Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple is a reflection of yourself and of the universe. Symbolically, we're talking about the microcosm of the self in correspondence to the macrocosm of the cosmos or the universe. This first Masonic tracing board is a lifetime of study, so it's not something that we could learn completely all in one day or all in one video, but these are just some different concepts associated with this drawing and the concept of the Entered Apprentice of the Temple of Solomon. So this drawing talks about finding a balance, right? Finding this middle way. It also describes this dichotomy in life, right? These pairs of opposites. And we begin at the bottom with this checkerboard floor, and the checkerboard floor represents lowered consciousness or ignorance. Not being aware, right? Or being a pawn that could be played. You see, it's a chessboard, so you could be played like a pawn if you don't understand some of these concepts in life, if you don't understand these concepts of dichotomy and archetypes, right? Then somebody who does understand the concept of the dichotomy in life and that middle way, somebody who does understand these different archetypal concepts could, have an upper hand over those who are ignorant. So this is about learning and finding a balance and a middle way in this dichotomy of life. So below the floor, it's not shown in this drawing, is a casket. And the casket represents the asleep self, where we're stuck in the material self. We're stuck down in the Malkuth, we're stuck in this earth mode, or where we are just stuck in this material sense, and we're not thinking on a spiritual level. We haven't begun our spiritual journey yet. And these pillars represent the duality of the human brain, the right and left hemisphere of the human brain. On the left is the pillar of strength, as for strength. Also for serenity, the pillar of action. And this is the sacred masculine. And you can see that the sun is up here above. And then this is known as Jachin, the light pillar, or the positive, or the yang polarity. And on the right is the pillar of Boaz, or beauty, or emotion, the pillar of emotion. And this represents the sacred feminine, or the negative, or the yin polarity. Light is a penetrative force, and dark or negative is the receptive force. Above Boaz is the moon with 7 stars. And these could correspond or could represent the Pleiades, the 7 ancient planets, the 7 days of the week, the 7 stages of the alchemical process of transmutation. Not just transmutation of turning lead into gold, but of spiritual transmutation, of turning your base existence into a golden existence. This middle pillar, or this pillar of wisdom, also known as the Ionic pillar, or Jacob's ladder, represents the two forces combined, the alchemical wedding. And this represents a balance of the sacred masculine and feminine. And this has a W, which stands for wisdom. So this is the pillar of thought, or the pillar of emotion. So you have the pillar of thought, the pillar of emotion, and the pillar of action. Kabbalistically, Jachin and Boaz mean, "In strength shall my house be established." And this refers to us building a strong mind. You see that there's these 3 people on the ladder, and these represents the 3 initiates. There's a book called the Kybalion, supposedly written by the 3 initiates, and this ancient wisdom that's been, kind of passed down. So this represents these 3 initiates in 3 different steps on their journey, on their spiritual journey towards light. In the center, there's a woman, and in color, she would be green, and green is the middle of the visible spectrum. You can see that there's a string with a key hanging from it, and this represents care. And this is saying that care is just dangling by a thread, just hanging by a thread. And this key grants us the entrance to our higher self, or care. So as we're climbing the spiritual ladder, there are these keys, and these keys will grant us entrance to our higher self. And this key represents care. The ladder represents a balance or a synthesis of the positive and negative. So the ladder goes from the dark to the light side. So the ladder starts here in ignorance on this checkerboard floor that represents being ignorant. And then the ladder goes up towards the sun, towards being illuminated. the light side. And you can see that there are cubes on either side. These are called ashlars. So the cube on the left is unfinished and rough, and the cube on the right represents the perfect stone. So this is the perfect stone, or the philosopher's stone, and this represents the stone that the builders rejected. You can see that there's a gauge on the rough ashlar, and this represents the concept of time well employed, or time well spent. So this spiritual journey that we're on, this alchemical process, this spiritual alchemy process that we're on, is time well employed. You know, part of it may not always seem like it's time well spent, but it is time well spent. When we're learning about ourselves, we're learning about the microcosm as it relates to the macrocosm. That is time well employed. That is time well spent. There's a level at the base of the left pillar here, and that represents actions in balance. And then over here on the right side, on the Boaz, we see that there's a plum at the base of the right pillar, and that reminds us to keep our emotions in balance and in an upright manner. When you look at this drawing just kind of all together, you can see that there's this backward 7, and there's a whole Kabbalistic study that you could get into about 7, or victory, or Nesash. When we look at the Kabbalistic tree of life, you can see that there's a lot of similarities between these two images. Here we have 10, which kind of represents earth, or the material world, and here we have this checkerboard floor, which also represents earth and the material world. And here we have a crown, or Kether, and the same thing here, which represents the first emanation. And here we have understanding and wisdom, and you can see that there are these 3 pillars, that there's this middle way, and that there's this left and this right pillar. And then you can see the same thing in this drawing, where you have this middle way, and you have this left and this right pillar, where the left and the right side represents the dichotomy in life. And again, you see that dichotomy in life being represented here in this first Masonic tracing board, or the entered apprentice of the Temple of Solomon. So I just wanted to thank you for checking out my video. If you enjoyed the video, if you want to like, share, and subscribe, that'd be really great. I appreciate you taking the time. Peace profound, and LVX.